Hello, everyone. I want to talk today about a topic that everyone keeps asking me about, requesting a video about. It's the subject everyone is talking about. And I think now, given the repercussions and the consequences of the developments, we can start relating this story to geopolitics. So I'm here to talk about Jeffrey Epstein. I don't want to deal with conjectures or things that are too far from reality. I'm going to stick to the facts, and I want to tell you the full story because not everyone knows this entire story with all the facts. And then, after that, I'll make an analysis and connect it to geopolitics and its consequences. So let's start from the beginning. What is Jeffrey Epstein's trajectory? He was born on January 20th, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York. He grew up in Seagate, a gated residential neighborhood in Coney Island, known at the time as a middle-class area of the city. His father worked as a groundskeeper connected to the New York City Parks Department. His mother worked as a school aide. There's no record that his family had political, business, or financial connections of relevance. And this point is very important because it directly contrasts with the social position Epstein would later occupy. During adolescence, Epstein showed strong academic performance, especially in mathematics. Some biographies indicate that he may have skipped grades and finished high school early, although there's no detailed public documentation that officially confirms that path. After high school, he enrolled first at Cooper Union and later at New York University. In neither case did he complete his degree. The absence of a university diploma is widely accepted and confirmed by all journalistic and biographical sources. In 1974, even without a completed university education, Epstein was hired as a math and physics teacher at the Dalton School, one of the most prestigious private schools in Manhattan, attended by children of wealthy and influential families. At that time, the school allowed exceptional hires outside conventional academic standards, which explains how he was admitted. He remained in that position for about 2 years. In 1976, he was officially dismissed for performance considered unsatisfactory. There is no public record of criminal accusations or formal complaints against him during that period. His time at Dalton marks his first documented contact with elite social circles. Even though it was brief, that experience placed him in an environment where personal relationships often outweighed formal credentials. By the time he left the school, many of those connections had already been established, connections that would later allow him to migrate into the financial sector without diplomas or recognized certifications. Up to this point, his profile is that of an ordinary person from an ordinary background, with technical ability in quantitative areas, an incomplete educational path, and a career beginning marked by unconventional but legally accepted opportunities. There is no evidence from this early period that he had accumulated significant wealth or was involved in illicit activities. Those elements only emerged later. Advancing in the story, we reach his arrival in the financial market. After leaving Dalton in 1976, Epstein entered the financial sector during a period of massive expansion on Wall Street. That same year, he was hired by Bear Stearns, one of the most active investment banks in the 1970s and 1980s. He began in a junior position in the options and derivatives area, a highly technical segment that demanded mathematical competence more than formal academic credentials. Internal records and later reports indicate that he progressed relatively quickly within the firm, becoming a trader and later working with high net worth clients, executing complex financial operations. Although he never became a prominent public figure within the bank, his trajectory suggests he adapted to the competitive environment, using his analytical abilities and an aggressive profile that fit the standards of the time. His time at Bear Stearns lasted about 4 years. In 1981, he left the bank. The exact circumstances of his departure were never fully clarified. Some sources claim he was dismissed for violating internal rules related to client dealings. Others indicate he simply no longer aligned with the institution's norms. There is no public record of lawsuits or criminal accusations associated with his exit at that time. Soon after leaving the bank, he founded his own company, presented as a wealth management consultancy exclusively for billionaires. From the beginning, the firm operated with little transparency. There was no public list of clients, no detailed financial reports, and no clear explanation of the services provided. Despite that, Epstein began managing large amounts of money, representing a significant leap from his previous role as a bank employee. His wealth grew substantially. At this point, a central figure in his financial and social rise appears. Leslie Wexner, founder of L Brands and one of the richest businessmen in the United States. In the 1980s, Epstein became Wexner's principal financial manager, receiving broad authority over investments, real estate, and corporate structures. Documents and later investigations confirm that this relationship was decisive for consolidating Epstein's fortune and social prestige. From this connection forward, Epstein began circulating in environments frequented by major businessmen, politicians, and members of the American intellectual elite. From the outside, it was unclear exactly where his personal wealth originated or how his company generated revenue compatible with his lifestyle. Documentally, what can be affirmed is that between the late 1970s and early 1980s, Epstein transitioned from financial employee to independent operator with direct access to enormous private fortunes, all without a completed university education or widely recognized professional certification. Moving to the next phase, the creation of his network of influence. Throughout the 1990s, Epstein consolidated an unusual social position for someone without a public career, without a university degree, and without transparent business history. He became an informal intermediary between large fortunes, political figures, and members of the academic world. The central axis of this consolidation was again Leslie Wexner. Court documents and investigations confirmed that Epstein had broad legal authority in managing Wexner's financial affairs. Among the assets connected to that relationship was a mansion in Manhattan's Upper East Side, transferred to Epstein in the 1990s, a property that later became infamous. This position granted him not only wealth but legitimacy among elite economic circles. From there, he began organizing and attending private meetings with internationally prominent figures. There are flight records, photographs, schedules, and testimony confirming proximity to former President Bill Clinton, who took multiple trips on aircraft associated with Epstein in the early 2000s. He maintained social ties with Donald Trump during the 1990s, when both moved within the same social environments in New York and Florida. In the United Kingdom, Epstein developed a close relationship with Prince Andrew. That proximity later resulted in legal proceedings and an out-of-court financial settlement without formal admission of guilt and led to the prince's public removal from official roles. In academic and scientific circles, Epstein also created associations with highly prestigious researchers. He used donations, event financing, and logistical support to approach these figures. Among them was physicist Stephen Hawking, who attended events funded by Epstein-linked organizations. He maintained connections with Harvard and MIT researchers, funding initiatives in physics, evolutionary biology, and cognitive science. Publicly, these relationships were presented as scientific philanthropy, yet they were marked by informality and a lack of transparency. Meetings often occurred in private residences, airplanes, or closed events without official institutional records. Meanwhile, his company continued operating without public disclosure of clients, financial statements, or business model, making external scrutiny difficult. Now we move to the crimes. From the late 1990s and more consistently through the 2000s, later investigations demonstrated that Epstein operated a structured system of sexual abuse involving underage girls. Investigations showed this was not isolated, but a recurring pattern repeated over years in multiple locations. According to testimony gathered by state authorities, federal prosecutors, and investigative journalists, the method followed consistent characteristics. Victims were primarily adolescents, recruited in economically or socially vulnerable contexts, especially in Palm Beach, Florida. Recruitment occurred either directly or through other young women who were paid to bring new girls to Epstein's properties. In several cases, those intermediaries were also minors. Encounters generally took place in properties in Palm Beach, New York, New Mexico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Victims reported being instructed to perform massages that escalated into sexual acts. Payments were made in cash afterward. Investigators identified the systematic use of money as both recruitment mechanism and deterrent to reporting. A central figure in the investigations was Ghislaine Maxwell, described by federal prosecutors as participating in recruitment, normalization of contact, and logistics. She was convicted in 2021 for sex trafficking of minors. Despite multiple complaints in the early 2000s, institutional response was limited and fragmented, allowing the abuse to continue. In 2008, after years of investigations, Epstein reached a highly controversial non-prosecution agreement with federal authorities. Under this agreement, he would not face federal charges in exchange for pleading guilty to lesser state-level charges in Florida related to solicitation. He served 13 months in county jail, much of it under a work release program that allowed him to leave detention up to 6 days a week. This arrangement had virtually no precedent in similar sex crime cases. The agreement also included immunity for potential unnamed co-conspirators. Victims were not notified beforehand in violation of the Crime Victims' Rights Act. Years later, courts recognized that federal authorities failed to fulfill their legal obligations to victims, but the agreement was not automatically voided. After serving his sentence, Epstein registered as a sex offender, but returned to much of his prior lifestyle, maintaining residences, aircraft, and social networks. In 2019, after renewed journalistic investigations and public pressure, federal prosecutors in New York filed new charges of sex trafficking and conspiracy. Epstein was arrested on July 6, 2019, after returning from Paris. Bail was denied. He was held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. On August 10, 2019, he was found unresponsive in his cell and later declared dead. The official cause was ruled suicide by hanging. However, reports indicated surveillance cameras malfunctioned and required checks were not properly conducted. These failures fueled widespread suspicion. The case effectively ended with his death. No further prosecutions of alleged co-conspirators have materialized at the same level of prominence. Now we reach the geopolitical dimension. The Epstein case became central to anti-establishment narratives. It was framed as evidence of elite corruption, of institutional protection of powerful individuals, the so-called deep state. This narrative gained traction within broader political movements that argue institutions are fundamentally corrupted. The problem is not that institutional failures did not occur. They did. The problem is when those failures are generalized into a total collapse narrative. Such narratives weaken trust in democratic institutions. When trust erodes, polarization increases. Democracies become internally fragile. And that fragility has geopolitical consequences. Authoritarian regimes can point to scandals like this as evidence that democratic systems are morally corrupt and institutionally dysfunctional. They use such cases to promote their own governance models as superior. In that sense, the Epstein case becomes not only a criminal case, but a geopolitical vulnerability, a tool in information warfare and perception battles. There are also theories that Epstein could have operated as an intelligence asset. The method? Gathering compromising material, cultivating powerful contacts, resembles both criminal blackmail and intelligence tradecraft. However, there is no publicly verified evidence proving he worked for any intelligence service. It is plausible. It is also plausible that he was simply a calculated criminal. Beyond that, we enter speculation. So this is the full chronological account, and these are the geopolitical reflections that stem from it. It is a tragic story of crime, institutional failure, and abuse of power. But it is also a cautionary tale about how easily scandals can be weaponized in global political competition. I tried here to provide a clear timeline and a sober analysis without conspiracy theories. There are plausible hypotheses. There are also narratives that go far beyond available evidence. The key is to separate documented fact from speculation. If you found this helpful, like the video, subscribe, and share it with others who want a clear and grounded understanding of the story.